this is a huge, mammoth-sized blockbuster trade. The Dallas Cowboys are trading Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers.
My message to Cowboy fans and everybody that's been watching this story, this is a microcosm of what's been happening with this franchise for the years that we've been watching.
This is a dark and sad day. Cowboys Nation and the Dallas Cowboys.
What a year it has been in Dallas. In February, Luka Doncic, about to turn 26, traded away from the Mavericks, and now here we are, not quite yet in September. Micah Parsons, 26, traded to Green Bay. We've been talking about it all morning long. I want to get a fresh perspective, a unique perspective, if you will. Dominic Foxworth, good enough to jump in from home this morning. Meek, we've been talking about it all day here. When you first saw it yesterday, 6 whatever it was p.m. last night, trade comes across. What was your first reaction to Micah Parsons being traded from the Cowboys to the Packers?
Dan Graziano be knowing, because he pretty much told us yesterday morning what was going to happen. And I also it's still surprising the fact that it eventually happened, because we've been talking about it all summer, it feels like, and no one actually believed it was going to go through. And then we get to this point, and everyone feels like up until this point has had the same critique and continues to have the same critique of Jerry Jones, which is interesting. But I've been trying to challenge myself, and on my show we do a thing called Make It Make Sense. When everyone is going in one direction, you have to try to make this decision make sense. And I think none of us thought the Cowboys were going to win the Super Bowl within the next 3 years or so, which is like the end of Dak's prime. So that's the best argument to make it make sense. And I understand also that if they wanted to make this move, they should have done it in March. But sometimes situations change. And if they start making more decisions over the next year or so that seem like they're gearing up to get a new quarterback, gearing up to move on from some other players, then it feels like it's a part of a newer strategy, but a more cohesive strategy. But right now, it's almost impossible to make it make sense.
Yes, I mean, you saw the Twitter yesterday, everyone, this means they're going to get Arch Manning, in the same way that the Mavericks wound up getting Cooper Flagg. We're going to get to that in a minute. I mean, the Green Bay Packers picks the next 2 years, which are going to be, in the late 20s or whatever, are not going to get you the first pick in the draft. Joe Fortenbaugh will have more gambling analysis for us, but obviously you host talk shows and all that kind of stuff. What's your take from a football perspective on this trade?
As an Eagles fan, I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled to move them out of the division. If you're Dallas, I think everything's already been said. I think every single person on this show has said it as perfectly as you can say it. You're in the business of scouting and evaluating talent. You bring in great talent. You identify the great talent. You pay the great talent. You win with the great talent. To move on from great talent because you couldn't get along, there's no room for feelings in business. That's why it's called business. If it was feelings, it'd be the Hallmark Channel and we'd be having a much different conversation.
That's probably right. And so, Mike T, I was fascinated by Kirk Herbstreit's take on this a little earlier this morning. For those of you who were with us about 45 minutes ago, Herbie was with us, and we primarily talked about the college games this weekend, but he does the NFL games now Thursday nights on Amazon Prime, and I wanted to get his take on it, and he suggested that there might be an element of this that is better for the Cowboys, that ridding a player. Look, we've had criticism over the years of Micah Parsons. He does it very into his own podcast and all that, sort of a perfect illustration of the modern day player, opining on all sorts of things that have nothing to do with his team. I was particularly critical. At one point, he made a list of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL and didn't include his own. So Herbie was sort of suggesting that maybe Nick is not even having this. No, you're shaking your head. You're not even having this.
No, I mean, hold on. Mike, I saw you advertising that Michael Irvin is going to be on First Take later.
Yeah.
I cannot, in good conscience, allow you to say that anything that the modern Cowboys are a part of is something that Jerry Jones is not comfortable with. Like, talking trash on a podcast is a lot different than the things that I saw in that documentary. If you ball, you ball. We can get over everything else, and sometimes some of that stuff is a little bit more interesting to Jerry Jones. So anyone who's arguing that possibly this is improving the vibe in Dallas or something like that, that this is about a culture fit, seems to be a little bit off base in my view.
And I think to contextualize what Herbstreit's point was, Greeny, was it's the inverse of what Dano said in the last segment, which is if you want to reset your culture, I'm all for it. Do it in March. New head coach. We got Dak Prescott. We're going to get George Pickens. and you know what we're going to do? We're going to invest in the defense with all these draft choices. But when you cut or move on from a player, again, they are 5 days away from being on a plane. You're trying to establish a new head coach, and you let go your best player. I'm just telling you, that is not the right time to do this.
Listen, everything Herbie said is 100% true. Like, when it comes to culture and work and how your best player has got to be your leader, everything we know about Micah is he falls under that umbrella. To Micah's defense now, when it comes to maybe getting difficult in the building, this is also a guy that in both playoff situations, the defense against the 49ers was absolutely fantastic, and the offense let the team down, right? So, like, as a pass rusher, that's frustrating. Last year, Dak was out for a significant period of time. So you're sitting there feeling helpless in many ways. So I'm sure there's frustrations over the course of 2 or 3 years that boil up. But this isn't, as far as we know, something where Micah Parsons doesn't work hard enough, or Micah Parsons is lazy, or Micah Parsons is fracturing the locker room. That brings it to a different conversation. But from everything that we know and that has been said about Micah Parsons as far as a worker, as far as a competitor, as far as a game day player, it's only been rave. There's been moments of frustration because of the playoff failures on shoulders that aren't of the defense.
Yeah, and I think even further, I would say that throughout the entire history of civilization, exceptions are made for exceptional people. Yeah. You know, you put up with a little bit more from Micah Parsons than you'll put up with from almost anyone else because he's just so ridiculously good.
The one mathematical formula in every GM's office is production equals tolerance.
Yeah, and in this case, there's no way in the world that was the math that ended it. Go ahead, Nate, give me a final word from you.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're going to spend a lot of time on the Cowboys, but the Packers were a top 5 defense last year, and they were in the bottom of the league as far as pass rush win rate is concerned. This team, I know we're all saying it, they're a serious Super Bowl contender, but their defense might be dominant in a way, even though it's not completely flawless. When you can have a unit that can dominate the way that front might be able to dominate in an offense that can get up and score early and put you in that position, that's when Micah was at his best. That's when the Cowboys were at their best. When Dak was scoring points early, and then Micah in that defense and Lawrence, they were eating and creating turnovers and blowing people out. This Packers unit could be scary.
Could be as good as any team in the entire conference right now. That's what the Packers become. They become certainly on the small handful of overwhelming favorites. Now, I've touched on it, but let's dive directly into this pool. This year has been a year of heartbreak for fans of sports in North Texas. Look at this picture. When they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, this is the picture they have in mind. And I will repeat again, when Luka got traded in February, he was a month away from turning 26. Now here's Micah getting traded in August. He is 26. The city has traded away 2 great young players in the